lots of people make predictions. Like it's very easy to make predictions, but it's not often that you can look back at the predictions that people made 20 years ago and see like whether they were on the money or how they saw the world. Look at this book. What's that book called?
Most Promising Companies in Australia by the Corporate Research Foundation.
Okay, so this book was published. You know Grant Butler? He's one of the people that was involved.
Name rings a bell. Who did he write for?
I can't remember where I met him, in some tech publication. Okay. Anyway, this is from 2003.
Oh, yeah.
And in every
good era, post.com
every one
bubble.
of these companies, it gives them a scorecard. It says biggest plus, biggest minus, tries to predict what the future is for these companies. I'm going to ask you a few companies. And you're going to say in 2003, what do you think the biggest opportunities and risks were as per this book? In 2000, it's pretty good, right? 20 years ago, what did they think?
I was a young
I'm going to start with, this company is called Census.
Okay.
The old Yellow Pages business.
Yep.
Yellow Pages
recently spun out of Telstra at that point, I would have thought.
So at the time, yes, it was formerly Pacific Access.
Oh, really? That's what it was called?
It was back in the day, Pacific Access.
Yep.
And it was Telstra's advertising subsidiary.
Yep.
And
so it would have been big business back then.
It was a big business. It was 2001, 1.1 bill of revenue.
I actually thought it would have been bigger than that.
More than 2,000 employees.
But I would have thought it was pretty highly profitable revenue there.
It was a very profitable business.
You basically produce the Yellow Pages and just dump it on people's doorsteps.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember the Yellow Pages? Do you remember Yellow Pages?
I do, yeah.
When it was big?
Yeah, the big chunky one and the white pages as well.
Yeah, the white pages,
Yep, that's my era.
I was more of a white pages man than the Yellow Pages man.
So what do you think in 2003 these people thought Census had going for them that was going to drive the profitability and growth of their business for the next 10 years? In 2003.
Great brand and scale.
Okay, brand.
I don't know the metrics they used.
Really. What do you think they were excited about? How about if I read you? Well, what do you think they were worried about? Maybe we'll start with that. What do you think they were worried about in 2003?
They shouldn't be worried about Google, but whether they were at that point, probably not, because Google really only started impacting probably 3 years later.
They were worried about the craziest thing.
What were they worried about?
They thought that they were going to be really big in internet services, but they were worried that the broader online services are still largely speculative. They were worried that the internet wouldn't take off. That's what they were worried about. And they thought that
by 2003, it was already, it could be around 6 years by then.
It was already obvious to me by 2005 that they were dead. I met someone from Census who was very senior in 2005, and I said, I think you need to respond to Google.
Yeah.
And they said, there's no possibility that that's going to dramatically affect us. Maybe they'll take a few categories like pest control. I remember the words. I'll never forget the words. And I'm like, I walked away and I thought, we'll start digging the graves. It's all over.
It's weird. You think I generally would avoid hiring somebody out of a Census, especially them. But one of the greatest CEOs in Australia, Cam from car sales, was from ex-Census. So it's clear there were some really talented people in that business.
But he got the hell out of there. And their biggest opportunity, they thought, was universal brand recognition. You got that. Means Census's core print directories business is mature and likely to continue without serious challenge. 2003.
Yeah.
We'll give that a big X. That's a disaster.
And it had so many powers. Obviously had brand, had scale, had network, because you had to be on there, and the more people that were on there, the better for the user experience. So that it had so many powers. Obviously had no counter positioning there, but it had great powers. Probably had corner resource to a degree, because people, you sort of had to advertise on them.
Yep, agreed. Who did you work for? Freehills?
Freehills.
All right, well, Freehills is in here.
Really?
87.
They obviously weren't a company, they were a law firm, but...
They gave them 4 stars, I think Assumers had a 5, 4 stars for flexibility. This is 2003, so maybe before your time? Or
no, I was an article clerk that year.
Okay.
Graduate.
Innovation, 3 stars. Human resources, 4 stars. Did you feel like it was a 4-star human resources? Good.
Close enough, yep.
Growth markets, 4 stars. Quality management, I don't know what that means. International orientation, 3 stars. I don't think they were 3 stars.
It was hard as a law firm, but Freehills were probably, if you go back then, there's probably 3 or 4 dominant firms. I think 3 or 4 dominant in terms of brand. So you had Mallison's, Freehills, Allen's, Arthur Robertson, and they're probably still the 3. Well, Allen's probably dropped off a bit, but Freehills is probably still the number 1 M&A firm anyway. So I think they've actually maintained. They've actually done extremely well. All the firms obviously merged with international firms. Now Herbert Smith Freehills, but largely I think big tick to the Freehills management.
Well, I think they got this right, because this was a business at the time with 1,000 lawyers and 230 partners, and they had some Southeast Asian stuff. I don't know if you know this, they used to be called Freehills, Hollingdale and Page. Absolutely. I vaguely remember that. I think they sent me a legal letter from Telstra when I was a kid.
Yeah.
When I was like 15.
They did Telstra's work, that's right.
They did Telstra's work, yeah. I basically had,
so did a bunch of other firms.
Well, you alluded to my phone business, and so I published some prices of my price next to Telstra, and I got like I ran ads, and I got like a few of them wrong, like by 1 cent. At the time, they were $2 a minute, and I got this letter from Freehill, Holdingdale, and Page, and I was like, literally, I honestly would have been 16 or 17, and I didn't know what to do about it. It's pretty like your first legal letter from a
throw it in the bin.
Well, I did something much funnier than that because I was so clueless.
Framed it.
Your first letter from a big law firm when you're in business is pretty scary, right?
Yeah,
it's pretty scary, and so I didn't know what to do, and so the person that signed it, I rang up the company, Freehills, and I said, can I talk to this person that signed it? And it was some like
junior lawyer,
associate or something.
That would be a template.
And I said, why are you sending me this legal letter? I just like, what? And they did not know how to respond because like, what the hell? Like no one's calling them up and having a discussion. And so they're like, oh, just go get a lawyer and write a letter back. That's what they told me.
This is how the whole game works.
I know. I was not playing their game.
Yeah.
Basically, I think they got this right. They said the biggest plus is they're very committed to their employees, but basically the focus was on people, and they think they're really good at hiring people.
Like banks and law firms, the IP goes up and down, the assets go up and down the elevators every night. So what Freehills has done very well, and what the great investment banks have done, Macquarie's done very well, is just getting great people incentivised in the right way and making sure, like a lot of the partners who were there when I was there are still there. I saw Rod Levy and Rob Nicholson, two sort of leading partners, a few weeks ago, and a few other partners. Partner I work for, Neil, went to Gilbert and Tobin, and now Ashton. So some do move around, but they managed to maintain a great core of certainly.
Yeah, and I think that continues to be their strength. You know what they flagged as the weakness, the risk?
What?
Too Australian centric. I think that was right, and they fixed that problem, right? What are they called now? Herbert Smith Freehills.
I think the jury's somewhat out on all those law firm mergers from perspective of I'm not sure there's any great synergy in being a global firm. Like they'll probably argue get a bit of cross-border work, but I'm not sure for an Australian business there's huge benefits.
Well, someone probably read this, and then they did this deal not that long ago, really. You know when Freehills was founded?
Well, the Freehills was the Sydney version.
Yeah.
The Melbourne version was, I think, called Mools.
Okay.
Mool, Hamilton, Durham. And that was, I think, in the mid-1900s, so 1940. There was a general... They did Coles' work, I think. So they were the Coles in-house lawyer. And I don't know this extremely well, but this is just from memory when I was a grad student. When I was doing work experience, actually in 95, I remember learning this story. But there's more merged with Freehills.
Well, the Freehills,
I think some big Perth firm.
So how old do you think the Freehills business? When do you think that started?
Sydney Freehills.
Yep, the Sydney Freehills.
Maybe early 1900s.
1852.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a very old law firm.
Yeah,
very old law firm. I reckon some of the original guys look like they're still there. There's
clearly survivorship bias here. Like there were 100 different firms, and they just merged into one.
Yeah, I'm going to give you one more of these, but like some of the companies on there, like I don't know, there's a company Guns Limited that I remember, like they're gone.
That was a Tasmanian forestry
exactly
that went bust.
They're gone, and there's like
literally gone.
There were like Agilent Technologies.
Guns was controversial. They tried to build a pulp mill in I think Tamar Valley, and there was a huge controversy about it.
Good memory. You're right.
And they went under. It was around that time. There was that controversy.
Village Roadshows here.
Yep, which has been bought by BGH, and I was at SeaWorld last week. That has been an incredible business turnaround story. Well, not so much turnaround, being harsh. It was always a pretty good business, but under BGH and obviously Clark and Bakash and the team have done an unbelievable job. The parks were full. The pricing's double what it used to be. The hotel was so busy you could barely
It's amazing, isn't it?
That is a great asset to own, and Ben Gray's done a great job there.
UCMS, remember that business? It was a call centre business.
I don't remember that.
I think it might have been bought by Selmat or something.
Yeah,
back in the day.
got bought by, I think Jared Kagan's business bought Selmat.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm going to give you the last one that you will love, okay? There was business at eServe Global. I remember that business. It was
what was eServe? That rings a bell.
Yeah. I can't remember. There's a whole lot of here. There's a whole lot of here businesses here that were big that are just gone. You know,
we talked about this a couple of weeks ago.
Macca's is on here, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Australian McDonald's. Yep. But we're going to finish with this one.
We talk about competitive powers for a reason, and the business that didn't have them don't exist anymore.
That's true. Flight Centre. You'll like this one. You'll like this one. This is so. At the time of writing, they had close to 1,000 outlets in 6 countries.
Yep.
And you have to think about when this book was written, it would have been just after the September 11 attacks.
Yeah, and this is almost peak of Flight Centre powers, really. Obviously, they're worth a lot now, but this was when they were just a dominant brand. Booking.com basically didn't exist yet.
Yep.
This is
I'm going to tell you.
They've been listed for about 10 years at that point.
I'm going to tell you their size, and then you can quickly look up what their size is now.
Yep.
Okay, but so this is what their scorecard was: flexibility and innovation. They only got 3 stars.
That's strange. They were highly innovative.
And then they got 4 stars for growth market, quality of management, which I thought was rough. The quality of management was 5 stars.
Yeah, totally 5 stars.
And international orientation. I guess that
Also
means
5 stars.
expansion
No, also 5
overseas.
stars.
But then the thing they got 5 stars for was human resources, and I think that is exactly what people know them as being very strong on. I think management should be 10 stars. Yeah. Like it's
incredible
such
management.
strong management.
And Screw's
right?
still top of his game.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And so in 2002, their revenue was 3.6 bill.
So this is TTV or is this revenue?
Revenue.
No, I think that's TTV.
Is that well, you can look at this. After-tax profit was 62 mil in 2002.
wow.
And what's their after-tax profit today?
300, 350?
Okay, so that business has gone pretty well in the last 20 years, 5x,
Yeah,
6x.
so TTV now is 25 billion. And
Okay, so that's probably TTV, you're right.
Yeah, so what they've done so well with the pivot was they've created a corporate business, which is basically $11 billion business, and probably the majority of that market value. So they've done an incredible job at creating. And we talked about Ben. Remember when we talked about Ben 2 weeks ago?
Okay, but let's just pause for a second. So this was their biggest growth opportunities in 2003, according to this book.
Yep.
Continued expansion into corporate travel.
Yep. So it was nascent at the time.
So has that worked for them?
Oh, incredible. It's the most of the value.
And
a big chunk of the value.
And niche markets. Are they niche markets? Like certain kinds of travel products, I guess, that are niche. Not really, right?
So the benefit is scale, and niche doesn't really fit with scale.
And the various degrees of investment flights into staff having their own businesses within the corporate structure fuels growth fantastic. From within. Is that correct?
Well, the way they incentivize their store managers, they effectively give them shadow equity.
Right.
So, which is not obviously because Flighties own the stores, but they've done that so well. They incentivize their team. So someone who's really good at Flighties could earn 300 grand. Otherwise, you're on 50. But the difference is significant.
And so they got that right, this book, the pluses, the opportunities, and the minuses, changes in the way people travel, including the rise of internet booking. So they did.
Absolutely.
So somehow they picked internet booking for this, but not for census with Google.
Yeah, bizarre, because internet booking was nascent then, very nascent.
And a trend that sees travel suppliers such as airlines cutting agents out of the distribution chain.
Although it took a while, but it's right. Well, that said, Flighties still make a lot of money from airlines, so half right.
And then some issues about September 11. So I think, like, how interesting is this book to go back and, like,
time machine.
It's just so good to see, because the thing is this. You know, there's this recency bias that exists where you just think the stuff that's happened most recently is the most important stuff. But to go back 20 years and look at these businesses and say, what did they get wrong? Like, what did people think were the risks and what were actually the risks? I haven't read this yet, but I think it's going to be quite an interesting read. I was so excited to show it to you. Unsurprisingly, you know so much about the businesses that are in this book.